Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. My name is Melissa Deely, your show host, and today I am bringing to you a wonderful friend of mine, Cheryl Brewster. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thanks, Melissa. It's always so much fun hanging out with you.
Well, I'm excited to share you with my audience today, and just to give the audience a little bit of an intro of who you are, and then I'll have you share your story. I want to start out with a question that you ask at the beginning of your bio. What makes you come alive and keeps you that way? And so, audience, really think about that. What makes you come alive and keeps you that way? For Cheryl, it's always about the courage to say yes to that something bigger in life, to venture into greater possibilities. Through intuitive consultations, mindset coachings, seminars, and intuitive business masterminds and communication courses, Cheryl's zone of genius is supporting entrepreneurs, corporations, thought leaders, government agencies in defining and creating that something more, especially during times of transition or challenge. And don't we know times of transition and challenge right now, Cheryl? So I love that you're here. This is my month or my theme of intuition, and I'm so excited to be able to share you with my audience as we dive deeper into learning how to tap into our intuition, because we all have it, but we don't necessarily all use it. But I would love for you just to start out by sharing your story. What brought you into this line of work and expertise that you are so incredible at sharing with others now?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. Well, first of all, that question, what makes you come alive and keeps you that way, is really what drew me into this field. And my background is corporate, working for electrical engineering and manufacturing. So it's a pretty big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So intuition will take us into our zone of genius. It will take us into our strengths, and it will take us into what we're naturally good at. And the quandary that we find ourselves in is that it will take us into the unknown or the unexpected. So that's where we could have inner values conflict, right? Where we really want to follow our passion in our hearts, but if we've not done it before, then it puts us what I call into free fall. It's almost an existential angst. And that's what happened for me. I loved what I did. I was really good at it. Amazing company. But you come to that crossroads where you know there's something more. And do you have the courage to take that leap? Because there's no track record. You were starting from scratch, at least I was. And if I had to do it all over again, I think I could have made things a lot simpler or easier, but I would do it all over again, because when we're trusting our gut, trusting our intuition, we're growing into our potential. And there's nothing more rewarding or satisfying than that. So it's an adventure for sure, because you're kind of meeting some dragons along the way, and you kind of, you make them your allies. You figure out you don't have to slay them. You can actually befriend them and tame them, and they can be your faithful servants. I just think it's so exciting. And especially now with all of the heaviness in the world and all of the fear, the old structures are tumbling. Mm-hmm. And literally, I truly believe that as each one of us does our part to go down deep inside, figure out what does make us come alive and do that, that we are serving humanity. And I think we're in for some really exciting times here. And it's so important to keep our focus on possibility and positivity, because if we don't, fear does a real number, as we know, and we don't need any more stress. We've had enough.
Exactly. I fully agree with all that you've shared there. And, especially with where the world's at today, how many people have lost jobs through the pandemic, and then those jobs are no longer available, or maybe they're being called back to their jobs, but they've changed, right?
Yeah.
This pandemic has changed us, the way we live our lives. And people are like, well, I don't want to go back to that job where I had to commute an hour and a half each way every day to get to work, etc. I've worked from home. I want to keep working from home. There's people that are having to face these decisions of, do I go back to what I was doing before or not? And having them understand that they can tap into their intuition to truly guide them in that decision making, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to just doing what they've always done and then ending up feeling unfulfilled or unhappy and stressed out because, it's not where they know they want to be.
Exactly. And right now, I think it's absolutely critical and crucial that we take a step back and look at that bigger picture. And you'll notice behind me, I've got a pirate hat because I believe one of the roles of intuition is to challenge the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really challenging old programming, old patterns. And I combine intuition with imagination, and the combination of those two, very, very powerful. And you and I were talking earlier, we both taken some training and some new modalities that we're using. And I love the aspect of, it's time to bring humor and joy and fun back into our worlds.
Absolutely.
And if you're going through a hard time, it's kind of hard to make that shift. But if you take a step back, look at the bigger picture and go, wait a minute, I have potential inside me I haven't even tapped yet. I wonder what would happen if. And that's a really great question right now for our listeners. I wonder what would happen if I listen to that part of me that wants to create more ease and grace in life.
And it's interesting that you say, that, because I've been using the words imagine if a lot lately, right? Yeah. But even when I think back to my own story of coming out of the corporate world and ending up in health and wellness, that was completely guided by my intuition, because I never had health and wellness on my radar before, right? I have a commerce degree, then I ended up in sales and corporate, etc. And while I cared about my health, it was never on my radar to get into this line of work. But things just kept happening that were directing me, right? And I was allowing myself to be guided into that. And then, unknowingly in some ways, using my intuition to take the next steps. And it has landed me in a place where I absolutely love what I do today. And I loved what I did before, but that was no more, right? It was gone. That wasn't an option anymore. So what was next? And I'm just really grateful that I've landed in something else that I absolutely love. And that's a message I want to share with the audience as well. You might love what you do today or did before the pandemic, and now that's no more. Well, that doesn't mean you can't find something else that you absolutely love. And the thing is, it could be completely different to what you were doing before. And you won't know that unless you allow yourself to be guided by your intuition.
Exactly. And that's why it plays such a critical role. And I like to use the analogy of, and this applies especially to, I think, to entrepreneurs who are, they use their intuition a lot, but we all have our own individual glass ceilings. And as entrepreneurs, we outgrow ourselves.
Mhm.
And as thought leaders, we outgrow ourselves. As creatives, we outgrow ourselves. And so it's really interesting. Like you can be super successful, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this isn't cutting it anymore. Like, what's going on? And so that invitation to go into imagination, to say, I wonder, and using imagination, what would it be like to? And I find the power of that so incredible. And it does displace the fear,
Mhm.
and it makes friends with it. And in my line of work with, doing intuitive readings and training and coaching and consulting, the bottom line for everybody, I believe, is, am I really being here for myself? And my sense is there's a real movement taking place right now where we're really, and I'll bring in the spiritual component here too, because as someone who studied metaphysics, is, what's the point of this particular lifetime? What am I really here for? And so the combination of intuition and imagination goes, well, what do I really like? What are my strengths? What gives me joy? And this ability to allow ourselves to really, really embrace feeling good inside. And it sounds very simple, but if we all were really honest with ourselves today, it was like, oh, we begin to find this pressure that we have perhaps unknowingly been putting on ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's where becoming aware of the pressure is so important, because there are tools that we can access inside that help to remove them. But this is gritty work. And I think that that's important to stress this. It is gritty work. It will take you into places you don't want to go. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because I've been there. I know what it's like to go into uncertainty and to come out the other side going, wow, that was worth the price of admission. I'm glad I did that.
It's always about coming out the other side, right?
Yep.
Because you come out the other side as a new person with new learning, new insight, et cetera, that allows you to look back and be grateful
Yes.
for whatever triggered you going through that additional growth. In the moment, you're not grateful for it at all. I totally get that. Been there too. But when you come out the other side, you've come out the other side when you can look back at it with gratitude. Right?
Exactly. So I love to take a look at, I always take a look at my own life and go, okay, whoever comes into my life, in terms of synchronicity, we're here to help each other grow.
Mhm.
And those can be really amazing experiences, and those can be more challenging ones. But the bottom line here is keeping an open mindset.
Yes.
And we can, it's very, I always go back to, okay, in this moment, is this making me come alive? And if it's not, the intuitive guidance then is bringing me back online. And I think it's very important to stress too, that what we're going through right now is to really honor what we're feeling,
Mhm.
and to embrace the negative emotions as guidance, actually saying, hey, get back on track. You're limiting yourself here in some way.
Very, very true. And you were just talking about tools.
Mhm.
And I know that you have a tool that you use the acronym JOY.
Yes.
And so I would love you to share that with the audience.
Absolutely. I use the word joy as an acronym because it stands for two things: JOY, just open yourself,
Mhm.
and JOY, joy of you. And
simply that word joy in and of itself, right? It's beautiful that you've got two acronyms from it, but joy is that highest energy state that we can be in as humans, or maybe it's one below. Is peace the highest? Joy might be one
I think
below.
peace is the highest, and then joy, which is, and they're both higher than love, which I find really interesting. And I was thinking about our interview today, and I thought, I have to remember to say this, is that I think joy is perhaps a bit higher than love, because joy is the action of love. And each one of us are here for a specific reason, to experience our contentment inside. That's what we're here for. And when we go through different life experiences that don't particularly feel so joyful, just that little reminder is that everything here serves me. Everything is here to support my growth. So the aspect of joy then is this profound acceptance that comes from both the sorrow and the pain of life, that joy integrates that. And so at the time, it doesn't feel so great. But again, this bigger picture that I believe joy really represents, because there's cycles and seasons, but you put them all together and, there's something really, really wonderful happening. So joy is,
share how we can all get into that place of joy, right? Because right now, not enough of us are living there.
Exactly. And so Melissa, I get so excited because in my own work, I see how I'm changing and evolving and growing, where, intuition supports joy. Why is joy important? Well, we think better, we feel better, we're more creative, we're more innovative. And when we allow joy and accept joy, not only as our birthright, but as the most optimal way of creating prosperity. Because the definition of prosperity is the integration of the cold hard facts in the physical world, whether that's a job or a house or security or cash or finances or whatever. But those things in and of themselves will not bring peace. There's a combination of things going on here.
Yes.
And that's why I like to talk about joy, because joy comes from the inside out. And
absolutely.
And when we're going through fear and transition, we forget that. But it's wired in us. And so that's why using imagination is so important and so powerful. And it's something that I believe it's a lost art that we are reclaiming, because it will take us into the grand adventure of life. And again, asking that question, am I really feeling alive in this moment? Which brings us to choice point. And that's where, and you're familiar with the ABCs of intuition.
Yes, I want to dive into that as well. Lots to unpack here and share with the audience.
Well, lots to unpack. And again, life is a great adventure or nothing at all. Helen Keller said that. And I adore, we all have muses. Well, Helen Keller is one of my muses.
Right.
And so, and here's an invitation I put out to the audience listening to this is, think of who you really admire, who really speaks to your heart, and take a moment and just be present with what it is you admire about them, and how that little bit of admiration can actually affect a change in you. And consider that you also are someone that other people admire. And really appreciate that you too make a difference in their lives. And what if you led from that place more frequently, more often? What if you allowed yourself to feel really, really good about who you are? Because when we're going in transition and change, the primal brain kicks in, right? And it's like, instead of realizing, yes, I do have impact. Yes, I bring incredible gifts to the world. the critical voice gets in there, and it's like, what a schmuck are you? And all of a sudden we're
or who are you to think you can do that?
Exactly.
All to keep us in our comfort zone and all to keep us safe, right?
Exactly.
Because that's what that primal brain is meant to do, is to keep us safe. And so, yeah. And those messages can absolutely, be our undoing.
Exactly. And that's why I love to talk about joy, because joy will bring you back. If you're not having fun, if you're not feeling peaceful, well, you can't and bring yourself back. So the ABCs of intuition really tie into that. So it's a formula that I created over many years, and it's so powerful. The ABCs of intuition are the language of the soul. And it's like, wow, I am here for a great adventure. And am I giving myself permission to really live it? And what if I did? So A is for aware. I'm aware in this moment of what's going on. Okay, I'm not feeling the greatest. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to allow what's here, knowing that it's serving me and it's inviting me to find what it is within me that I'm not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I believe, totally reframes fear, because now it's like, oh, I'm feeling this particular emotion because there's something more for me that I'm not seeing.
Right.
So aware, breathe, connect to what that hidden aspect is. Trust that it's there.
In the ABCs, the B is breathe. So we're breathing through that difficult emotion that we're dealing with.
Yes.
Right. And then C is connect, you said.
Yep. Connect to the heart, because in the breathing and the allowing that emotion to be there, Michael Singer talks about this in The Untethered Soul. He said, yes, you're going to feel discomfort, but it will only be temporary. So the more that we allow ourselves to be really honest with ourselves, tell the truth, okay, here it is, rather than judge it, I'm going to see it as energy moving. And I like to use B for breathe, but I also like to use it for bless. I'm going to bless this as it moves through me, because it's trying to help. Thank you.
Right.
So that,
and the sooner we allow the ABCs to kick in and we choose to, be aware of it, acknowledge it, breathe through it, bless it, and then connect with it, the sooner we get to the other side and that place of joy, right? As opposed to fighting it, squashing it, eating our way through it, right? I mean, this aligns so beautifully with just the work that I do with people in terms of, detoxing and eating and guiding them through a detox. And, people might be thinking, well, what's the benefit of a detox? Well, A, you're cleaning out your insides, et cetera, lowering inflammation and all of those physical health benefits. But honestly, the greatest benefit that I see my clients get is the awareness in how their body feels in when they learn how to turn on digestion before eating, when they change the way that they're eating from, into a more nutrient dense meal, et cetera, when they change the timing of their meals, as they learn all of this, that awareness is kicking in, right? And so from that place of joy and awareness, all of it ties back to our health as well, because when we stuff down those emotions and we don't allow them to process and we ignore them, that's another form of toxicity in our body that causes inflammation and over time can trigger dis-ease in the body.
Exactly. And you nailed it, because it's the unprocessed emotion. And again, here's the biology, right? It's a combination of the emotional with the biology. And that's why listening to our intuition is so important. You said something really, really that touched my heart there, which is really, we're talking about mindfulness and really appreciating, like I love what Joseph Campbell said. He said, this moment is eternity. If we don't get it here, we don't get it anywhere.
Right.
So to be able to live life in terms of, in this moment, hey, I'm here, I'm alive. What am I going to do with this aliveness? And then when we're talking about food, is we're mindful with appreciating and we're mindful with, there is so much to discover. There is so much to enjoy. And I'd even use the body as a metaphor in a bigger way.
Mm-hmm.
For example, what's happening in the world today, whether it's Russia and the Ukraine or whatever is happening in these big world events, is that as we each do our part, that we're all contributing to the fabric of humanity in consciousness. And so to really make this personal, because the more that we do to live our highest optimal self, the more we are contributing, and we will be led or guided to appropriate action that we need to take. So
we also lift others up around us.
Exactly. And so when you talk about inflammation, we are all at, I in this massive return to taking care of the planet,
mm-hmm.
by starting with us. And speaking of us, there's a again, I'll quote Helen Keller, because I think what we're really battling right now is overwhelm. Mm-hmm. And what can one person do? Mm-hmm. And one of her quotes that so touched my heart was, I'm only one person. I can't do everything, but I will not refuse to do the one thing I can do.
Powerful.
Isn't that like yeah. If we all really, really took that to heart, because each one of us has the one thing that we can do.
And there's another quote, and I'm not even going to get it right. I'll completely butcher it, but I love it. And it was something along the lines of, don't believe that just because you're one person, you can't change the world. It's exactly. In fact, the only thing that ever did.
Oh,
right? Because one person starts it, and then it has that ripple effect. Right?
Exactly.
And so you could be that one person that triggers that ripple effect.
You are that one person. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that's what I call the return to joy. We live in a society, especially in North America, where it's so external based, and it's like, no, it's internal.
Yes.
That's the greatest treasure there is inside. And so this shift and awakening, and it starts with the detox, in the mind, body, spirit. It does start with the detox. Okay, let's clean all this stuff out. But here's my thing is like, but can we have more fun doing it? Like, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that. But when we have more fun doing it, like, number one, more gets done, and we just enjoy life more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what
it's funny that you say that, because I was recently in a business intensive training, and we had somebody come in and talk about subject lines for emails and headlines for newspapers, right? What gets people to click and open and read, et cetera, et cetera. And, my group program is called Health Kickstart and Detox. And it's what it is. Is that gonna, are people jumping up and down to do a detox? No. Do people know they need it and they do it anyway, and they love the process with me? Yes. But then they were laughing and going, well, you could be changing your headlines to, look hot naked again, get bikini ready this summer. So I've started doing that just because, bring that fun and silliness into it, et cetera, et cetera. And to have people, kind of look at it in a more playful way. We're still, having to look after our body, but it can be more playful. It can be more fun, which I love that you brought that up, because my whole last month of podcast episodes was all about bringing more play and more fun into your life. And as a result of doing that, it's something that I've been consciously doing a lot more of recently. And it's been fabulous, from, girls' night out, dancing at the Irish pub until all hours, to I just saw the same movie twice in one weekend because it was Top Gun and oh my God, it was amazing. And I'm in love with Tom Cruise all over again. And I haven't done that since I was a teenager, right? But we can, and we can allow ourselves to have fun. Just because we grow up into adults doesn't mean we have to stop having fun. And something else you also mentioned that brought me back. I'm reading the book Atomic Habits right now. And you mentioned like showing up and being alive. And in that book, he told the story of his 5-year-old daughter one day, no, 2-year-old, she was 2. And she was up really early one morning and he was up with her and she just decided to walk out the front door. So he followed her out the front door and she walked out into the middle of the garden and threw her arms up in the air and said, "Hello world, I'm here." Right? As a 2-year-old, we need more of that in our adult lives, right? We have to stop being so serious. And that is a child who's absolutely, living in her joy and ready and in her aliveness, right? She's ready for her day.
I love that story. And it really speaks to me, I think, is I call it the discipline of joy. I put the two words together because it's like a discipline. It's like, yeah, you know what? We are unlearning some really toxic habits. And again, whatever analogy works for people, again, for me, in one of the talks I've got coming up, it's called Embrace Your Inner Pirate, because there and fail boldly, because it's like, why the pressure that we unknowingly put on ourselves. And so when we embrace that inner pirate, it's like, I'm going to break this pressure. I'm going to break the rules of conforming to the pressure. I don't need to be doing this to myself. But without reflection, which is why I host monthly intention setting, without reflection, how will we know? And so if we imagine that every month is a gateway to the grand adventure of your life. So every month you have a chance to take the time to reflect. What did I learn? Where did I grow? How much more am I living the adventure of my life this month than I was last month? And really keeping those focused questions, and also telling the truth, like, okay, what am I still avoiding? And to go in and to go deep, and to also go in with this whole idea of life is a grand adventure or nothing at all, to really put it in perspective. Because again, what's the point? What are we here for?
I love the idea of it being that grand adventure. Again, when you look at it from the perspective of the child, right? Yes. To them, every day is a grand adventure. And I don't know about you, because you were in the corporate world as well, but I do definitely, I loved my career in the corporate world for 24 years, but I do feel like that's where some of this got beaten out of me, in the sense that, it was just, there was so much focus on getting the job done. And,
yes.
You're paid for a 40-hour week, but you weren't going to get the job done in anything less than 60. And then after that, you're dealing with, getting meals on the table and kids to sports games and the grocery shopping done. And you don't have time for anything else. And the stress just builds, right? And that's where I was and I look back grateful that I got let go, because I got to completely change my life and design a life to live it the way I want to live it now, where I do get to play and I do get to have that time to be reflective, et cetera, et cetera. But was that your experience in the corporate world too, or is that just
yeah,
mine?
Well, very much. And in two ways. I worked for some amazing companies, and man, I worked for companies that was like, oh my. But I also had an internal system. One was wired for joy and one was wired for pressure. And so I ended up flat on my back, and I was in my 30s, I think, flat on my back, couldn't move. Literally, paralyzed with pain because of a really toxic work environment. And it was that particular event that triggered, I'm going to learn everything I can about living the grand adventure of my life. And that's where things really changed. And that whole listening to my intuition, that's where it kicked in. And the thing that totally changed it for me was absolutely tapping into this whole idea of joy. There is something inside of me that is so happy and so powerful. However, I have a responsibility to it. And for all of us, if we continue to deny that and not nurture it, not grow it, and this is why I love to teach, because who knew that learning about joy would be a process or a curriculum? Well, I found in my own life, it actually was. It was like, okay, it's, cause is greater than effect. So let's go back to root cause. And let's go back and ask that question, well, what if? And what if, even in the midst of this really difficult circumstance, and you and I were talking, and I'm going through one right now with some critical things happening with some loved ones around me. And it's like, there's that part of me that wants to go into the worry and the ugh. And there's this other part that's going, no, remember, you've done this before. You mastered it before, and you can master this too. And the power of joy overcomes the power of stress. And when we give ourselves the dignity of life, the dignity of, I will be true to this adventure. I will be here for myself. And like Viktor Frankl talked about, that is the last of the human freedoms. So the question that I would have to, again, anyone listening to the podcast is, this is your freedom to nurture. This is your freedom to grow. It is yours. And really listen to that voice of intuition, because it knows the way, and it helps you ground this so that you have a solid foundation to walk on, even in the midst of the most difficult circumstances. And that's what I call joy, that ability to live your life that way on those kind of terms. That, in my mind and my definition, is truly the hidden treasure inside that we are each given to discover.
And I love that. And, we're talking about corporate beating things out of us. But the other thing that I want to point out is there may be listeners that are here and maybe not fully in their place of joy and having designed their own life and feeling that true happiness and joy from inside, because whatever they've been doing has been guided by other people.
Yes.
And the biggest one of that I see is parental expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Especially our generation. I hope it's not true of the current kids coming out of high school. And I know when my kids were in high school, I actually went to a seminar by our Parent Advisory Council talking about helping your children choose what they were going to do after high school. And it wasn't just about what are they good at. And it was definitely not about what do you want them to do. It was about what are they good at, but what is their passion? What do they enjoy? And you combine those two to help guide them. And it has nothing to do with you. And for me at the time, I just thought, wow, that's really great advice. Because if I hadn't heard that, would I have tried to guide my children into something that wasn't necessarily aligned just because I thought it was what they should do? And I know so many people who have had that happen, right? And then they get into adulthood and they're not happy and they're unfulfilled because it wasn't ever what they were supposed to be doing. And if that's you as a listener, that you're feeling unfulfilled in your work, in your life, do that internal check-in. Listen to your intuition, because maybe it's time that you get to choose what you do for yourself.
That is so beautifully put, Melissa. And with that, it's the call to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe at the bottom of this, for all of us, it's how much am I really trusting myself? And I love quotes. The German philosopher Goethe said, and until you trust yourself, you will not know how to live.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that amazing? And so
Yeah.
again, it's the call to intuition is the call to joy, which can only happen by trusting ourselves, which means we need to embrace our inner pirate here and break some of these rules, these chains that we have bound ourselves in, take back our power, whether that's from old limiting beliefs or whether that's from some relationships that are demanding. And where have I given my power away? Where have I unknowingly? And again, I want to bring this back to the power of emotion, because in the reframe work that I love to do, it's like, okay, let's take this, what you would call a negative emotion, let's take it and look for the gift inside of it. Because what if you're feeling depressed because you're not living life on your terms? What if the depression is actually trying to serve you and help you and get you to see that? And so to be very kind to ourselves as we unearth these things, because there's some real vulnerability here. And there's a beautiful phrase from Plato that I love to use in the communications courses that I teach: be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
Mm.
And so
I like that.
Yeah, isn't that great?
I also love, in relation to kindness there, this one I think everybody will know, but it's so true that in a world where you can choose to be anything, and I think that ties in beautifully with what we're talking about as well, is that it's your choice and you can choose to be anything.
Yes.
Choose to be kind.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, we can be so technologically advanced, and yet we live in a world that is driven by war.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, why? I do not want to be a part of a society that continues to ignore what's most important. And why, at this point in 2022, are we dealing with issues that have been here since the beginning of time? And the why is because the internal aspect here, if it's not driven by exploration and adventure and kindness, we've missed the point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a real call to arms. I call this call to arms. And it's a call to grace. Let us, each one of us, really tap in and say, what can I do? And the first place we start is, okay, am I doing what makes me come alive? And if I'm not, that's where I start. And then from there, that energy force field is so strong and so powerful. I believe we have a global movement right now, which is calling us forward to be the change makers we're capable of being. And it starts so simply in our own mindset, in our own self-care, and this whole idea that this one precious life, and I had an out-of-body death experience, and when I was coming back, I was told, you have a second chance. And the second chance was, do what brings you joy. That's how we're going to heal the planet. And it sounds perhaps a little naive, but is it really? how much power is there. Sean Anker wrote a book called Happiness, The Happiness Advantage. And the stats there are amazing. And over a 20-year period of studying business and prosperity, the most successful people are the ones who are happy. So let's do this together. Like, I just think it's time to have fun. And I think it's time to have conversations like this where we say, you know what, there is something so amazing that wants to move through me. And some people don't even know what it is yet. But what happens when they find it and they discover it? And then we have conversations like this, and you do the great work that you do with supporting people with their physical health, and then the emotional component of that. And I do what I do, which is saying, yeah, you've got something inside of you that knows the way. You can trust it. And together, let's truly create this amazing adventure of life together. We need leaders who are ready to lead from that kind of energy, that kind of mindset.
And on that note, I just really want to leave the audience with that question that we started with at the very beginning, and to start asking it of yourself every day and even throughout the day, so you can start to tap into what brings you alive. So does this make me come alive? I think that's such a powerful question that will lead us into using our intuition, into working through our ABCs, and into that place of joy. And as we've said, when one person does it, it has the ripple and beneficial effect on all the people around you, and we all rise up together. So thank you, Cheryl, for joining me here today. This has been an amazing conversation, and I just love everything that you shared. It's so powerful, so profound, and fun too, right? Bringing play and fun back into it as well. Yes. And before we sign off, though, I just want to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests. What does "don't wait for your wake-up call" mean to you?
Oh, I love that. Well, to me, it says, and you caught me by surprise here. I wasn't expecting this. To me, it means when joy has been knocking at your door and you haven't been listening, there's going to be a price to pay. So I'd rather pay the price in yes than, oh, I wish I would have listened sooner.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true, right? And again, that's where the awareness comes in, to recognizing when joy is knocking at our door and us tuning in and listening. So you have very graciously offered a gift to the audience. It is a gift for the first 5 people that respond, because this is a highly valuable gift and we can't just leave it out there infinitum for whoever listens to this, 5 months, 5 years from now. But please share your gift with the audience so they know to go to the show notes and book a session with you if they're interested.
Yes. So the gift today is an Akashic reading with me, a half-hour Akashic reading. And the Akashic records are basically the supercomputer of your soul. That's where everything is stored. And what's even more exciting, not only is it a storage unit, it's also very alive and vital. And we go in, we see the information that's there, and then we ask, okay, what is here to support the success or the joy or the healing, whatever that is, the prosperity, the adventure moving forward. And very powerful work this is that we're up to here. So yeah, for the first 5, I look forward to it. And,
yes. So thank you so much for offering that to the audience. And I highly recommend it to those listening. Don't delay, because this is an incredibly eye-opening experience into your past lives and who you are today. And I know the first time I had my Akashic records read, it was really confirmation of who I am today. And I found that to be incredibly powerful. So is there any last thing that you would like to leave the audience with? And also please share how the audience can get hold of you as well. It will all be in the show notes, but you can go ahead and share that here too.
Oh, sure. Yes, theintuitivelife.com. And I love to hear from anyone who's been listening to the podcast that I'm on. And my question is, what makes you come alive and how can I help support you in doing that? So I welcome listeners to reach out and go, yeah, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for more.
I love that. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast, Cheryl. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the audience for tuning in and listening. I will be back next week with a deeper dive into using your intuition as it relates to your health. So have a great week, everyone. And thanks again, Cheryl. Bye.
Thanks, Alyssa. Bye.
If you're enjoying my content and someone that wants to step into being proactive in your health and learning more, I would love to invite you to join my membership community. There's a link in the show notes. For only $19.99 a month, you get access to all of my content, and there's a lot, as well as weekly calls that you can come and get your health questions answered. It's truly priceless. I'd love to see you join the community. Check out the link in the show notes.